Imagine waking up one morning and checking your phone as you always do. The screen lights up with a flood of notifications, messages, likes, comments, and endless updates. It feels almost impossible to ignore. With a few flicks of your thumb, you dive deep into this ocean of images, posts, and stories that shape your every waking moment. You smile at the perfectly filtered lives of others, compare yourself to those you've never met, and find yourself momentarily satisfied by the dopamine hit that arrives when you post something of your own. But then as you scroll, something shifts. That satisfying buzz begins to fade and an unsettling thought creeps in. Is this really what it means to live? Has this small device, which promises connection and fulfillment, become the very thing that silently steals your peace? You look around you at the people you know, at the world unfolding around you, and something doesn't add up. Are we truly more connected, or have we simply learned how to perform connection? Social media is sold as a tool for bringing us closer, but as you stare at your screen, can you feel the gnawing emptiness beneath it all? We were promised that this digital revolution would solve all of our problems, end isolation, offer unprecedented freedom, and allow us to build communities at the touch of a button. Yet instead of a world of limitless connection, we seem to have traded depth for distraction. Why does it feel like the more we interact online, the more we lose ourselves? Why are so many of us, despite being constantly connected, struggling with an overwhelming sense of loneliness? What does it mean when we curate our identities through carefully crafted posts, turning ourselves into brands? Shiny, flawless images, with every flaw carefully hidden behind a filter. What is the real cost of living in this hyper-connected, curated world, where likes and followers are counted as social currency? Is this truly the connection we were promised? Or have we traded the richness of human interaction for the hollow validation of digital applause? These questions aren't just rhetorical. They are the foundation of a mental health crisis that lurks beneath the surface of social media's shiny facade. Beneath the glossy filters and perfect moments, there's something darker at play, something that is quietly reshaping the way we think, feel, and relate to the world, and to ourselves. As we scroll, like, and post, we feed into an unspoken cycle, one that reinforces our sense of inadequacy, fuels comparison, and ultimately distances us from the very thing we crave: genuine connection. It's almost as if with each swipe, we are giving away pieces of our souls, only to receive in return a fleeting moment of satisfaction. But how much longer can we sustain this paradox? When did connection become a commodity? And more importantly, when did we forget the true meaning of being present? The darker side of social media is not just about the visible consequences, the anxiety, the pressure, or the loneliness. It's about the quieter, more insidious effects it has on our sense of self and our ability to truly experience life. The question now is not whether social media is bad, it's how much of it is really harming our minds. And if it's so pervasive, how do we escape from the web we've woven around ourselves? Can we as individuals break free from this constant need for validation? Or have we become too entangled in the very systems that promise freedom, but deliver anything but? The truth is, we may not even realize how much social media is controlling our lives until it's too late. But there is one thing that becomes clear when you pause long enough to reflect. We are living in a society where our worth is measured by our digital presence. What does that mean for our mental well-being? How much of our self-worth are we willing to trade for likes, shares, and comments? And more importantly, how much of who we are deep down are we willing to sacrifice for the ephemeral glow of social media? As we venture deeper into this exploration, we will uncover not just the psychological and emotional consequences of social media, but the philosophical forces that have shaped this reality. Stay with me, because the answers lie not in pointing fingers, but in understanding how we got here, and how we can begin to reclaim our minds from this all-encompassing force. At the core of social media's magnetic pull lies one of the most basic human desires: the need for connection. But this desire, which should be rooted in deep, authentic relationships, is often manipulated into something superficial. Herein lies a paradox. Our need to connect with others is being exploited, transformed into something transactional. The question is, why have we let ourselves be swept up in this? The answer lies in the way social media taps into the core of our identity. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, speaks about the concept of the persona, the social mask we wear in public. The persona, Jung argued, is not who we truly are, but the version of ourselves that we present to the world in order to be accepted, to fit into society. On social media, this persona is taken to the extreme. We curate our profiles carefully, presenting only the polished, edited version of ourselves, perfect images of success, beauty, and happiness. But in doing so, we neglect the true self, the deeper part of us that craves authentic connection and genuine experience. Jung also introduced the idea of the shadow, those parts of ourselves that we reject or ignore, the parts we keep hidden. In the age of social media, this shadow is not only ignored, it's buried beneath layers of filtered images and carefully curated posts. By presenting only our best selves, we inadvertently repress our true emotions, vulnerabilities, and flaws. The paradox here is profound. The more we attempt to present a perfect version of ourselves to the world, the more we disconnect from who we really are. We hide the very parts of ourselves that need to be accepted, not by others, but by us. This creates a psychological rift, a split between the ideal self we project online and the real self we experience in private. The tension between these two versions of self can breed feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, and loneliness. No matter how many likes or comments we receive, there is a constant undercurrent of dissatisfaction because, deep down, we know the image we project is incomplete and artificial. But this isn't just a psychological issue, it's also deeply philosophical. Think about what happens when you accept that the self we display on social media is not the same as the self we truly are. It's a problem of authenticity. In his work, existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously argued that humans are condemned to be free to choose, but burdened by the responsibility of defining who we are. On social media, we are no longer freely defining ourselves. We are being defined by the expectations of others, by algorithms, by the relentless pressure to conform to an ideal. This pressure to perform, to always be seen in the best possible light, is not something we chose. It's a societal construct that has been subtly built over time. We live in a culture that prioritizes appearance, status, and external validation. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, argued that a meaningful life comes from having a purpose, from finding personal significance in the face of suffering. Yet on social media, meaning is often reduced to the pursuit of fleeting rewards, likes, followers, and validation from strangers. Frankl's work emphasizes that the search for meaning in life is the foundation of psychological well-being. And yet, on social media, we are distracted from this search. We are constantly chasing external markers of success, all while our internal world grows emptier. As Frankl might suggest, without meaning, we risk falling into despair, as the self we are trying to build is constantly shaped by others, not by our own choices. Erich Fromm, a social psychologist, explored the dangers of modern consumerism and the way it diminishes human experience. In his view, society has become so obsessed with material possessions, appearances, and external achievements that it neglects the inner life, the intellectual and emotional growth that gives life true depth. Social media, in many ways, is an extension of this consumerist culture. We are no longer seeking fulfillment through genuine experiences, relationships, or growth. Instead, we are feeding an insatiable desire for external validation, always looking for the next momentary boost. But even more dangerously, we are increasingly forgetting that our worth is not determined by the number of followers we have or the number of likes we receive. We are conditioned to equate our value with our digital presence, and in doing so, we begin to lose sight of the more profound aspects of human existence: self-reflection, personal growth, and deep connection. We become so caught up in presenting a version of ourselves to the world that we forget how to simply be. This philosophical and psychological crisis is not merely a personal dilemma. It's a cultural one. We live in a society where success is measured by external metrics. How many people know your name? How many followers you have? How many likes your post gets? But when we allow ourselves to be defined by these external standards, we strip away the complexity and richness of human existence. We reduce ourselves to avatars, two-dimensional projections of who we think we should be, rather than who we truly are. And here lies the greatest danger. The more we present this curated version of ourselves, the more we become disconnected from the very things that make us human, our vulnerability, our authenticity, our imperfections. In a world where everyone is chasing the same image of perfection, how can we ever truly understand what it means to be whole? How can we find peace when we are constantly at war with ourselves, trying to meet the expectations of a world that demands we be perfect, but never shows us how to embrace our flaws? Social media has hijacked our sense of identity. It has become a mirror that reflects not who we are, but who we think we should be. But to break free from this cycle, we must first confront the deep-seated fears that keep us locked in this performance. Fear of being rejected, fear of not being enough, fear of being left behind. Until we do, the mental cost of social media will continue to rise, leading us further away from the authenticity and meaning we crave. As we move forward, we must begin to recognize these psychological and philosophical forces at play, not just to understand why social media is so damaging, but to see how we might begin to break free from the chains we've allowed it to place around our minds.